Now that we've gathered all the information we need and stored them in variables, it's time to actually make some decisions using a bunch of if statements. This is also where we'll use the data we collected from our survey to help make those decisions as accurate and informed as possible. For each survey question, we're going to create a series of if-else blocks to determine which answer the user chose. Inside of each of those ifs, we're going to ask, did they choose math? Or did they choose English? Or did they choose science? Or maybe they chose drama to figure out what their answer was. Depending on what their answer was, we will then award points to our different outcomes. Again, this is where you're using your cross tables and data that you gathered in your survey. In total, you should have 3 of these giant if-else chunks, one for each question. And each of them is going to have 3 to 4 if statements because you need to compare each question to the 3 or 4 possible different answers. I'm just going to show one of these in this video, but you'll be able to use that as an example to do the other 2. So let's go to code.org and see how it works. Keep in mind, all of this is still going to be within the same on event from last time, because this is still part of the reaction to clicking that submit button. I'm going to start by going to the control part of my toolbox and dragging out an if block into that on event. Inside of that if, I need to do a comparison to see how does their answer match up with the possible choices. So I'll go over to my math box and drag out an equality test to see, does this match that? Now, the first thing I'm comparing is whatever's stored inside of that answer variable that we created last time. So I'll just take the same name of that variable, save class. On the right side, I'm going to compare it to one of the possible answers. In this case, one of their favorite classes could be math. So I'll put that in quotation marks on the right side of my if statement. Now, if their favorite class is math, that lets me know a little bit more about them and what I should recommend. For example, I think engineer would be a great choice for them, but also a teacher might be a good choice as well. So inside of this if statement, I'll go back to my variables and update 2 possible professions that I'll recommend to them at the end. So again, I'm not using the var because I'm not creating anything. I'm using this third one because I'm just updating something that's already there. Here I'm going to use my counter pattern way back from September and October, our good old friend, the counter pattern, to update my recommendations. So I first said I was going to update the engineer. I'll say engineer equals engineer plus 3 points. Again, I think math and engineer have a really strong relationship that I found in my cross tables, and so I'm going to give it big 3 points. However, I think there was also a bit of a correlation between math and teachers from what I saw in my data. So I'll also go ahead and say teachers get a little plus of 1. So if they chose math, I'm going to more highly recommend engineers. I'm also going to recommend teachers. However, math isn't the only class. There's lots of other classes that they could have chosen, so I'm going to extend my if block using that little plus sign. Boop. And do it again. This time I can ask a new question, which is going to be really, really similar to the last one. So I'll drag out another equality test, and this time ask if their favorite class was English. Okay. This time, my data told me something different. It said, hey, if their favorite class is English, um, teacher is really the only one that stood out. It didn't correlate with being an engineer or an artist or a firefighter. And so I'm just going to put one update to my recommendation scores. I'm just going to say teacher equals teacher plus 2 points. The points here are a little bit arbitrary. Really think about them in comparison to each other. So the total number doesn't matter too much. It just kind of signifies the importance of one choice compared to another. How strongly does liking English match with becoming a teacher? Okay, we have 2 choices down now, but we still have 2 more options that they could have chosen. So I'm going to go ahead and extend my if block one more time. Here, I'm just going to switch into typing mode because I like that. And I'm going to ask if their fave class is... What was the other option? One thing you might want to do is go back to your design mode and check out exactly what those options were. Keep in mind, you'll need to match the spelling exactly, so it may be helpful to even just copy and paste directly from your design mode. Put it right back into your code mode. Now I'm looking at science. I noticed that there was also a strong correlation between science and engineering, but also science and firefighters was a cool relationship I found. So I might just say engineer equals engineer plus 5. There was a really, really strong correlation. But also firefighter equals firefighter plus a little bit of a boost there. For my final one, I'm going to ask one final if statement. If fave class equals drama, then what am I going to do? And for this one, I noticed there wasn't actually a strong preference. Like everyone who chose drama was equally distributed across these 4 different professions. There wasn't a clear favorite of one over another. In other words, liking drama doesn't really tell me enough to recommend a specific career for you. So in this case, I'm actually not going to do anything because, again, there's no strong relationship there. So I could just type nothing into this if statement, but that seems a little wasteful. And so I'm actually going to explain in a comment why I'm making that choice. I might say something like, no clear correlation between drama and careers. That way, other programmers don't think I've forgotten and just like got lazy and didn't fill in my code, but they actually understand, oh, there's a choice behind not filling that in, and it's a really smart, educated choice. Of course, you'll want to make sure that actually is the case for your data. And there we have it. We've done one question, just what's your favorite class, and updated our recommendations based on these 4 possible answers. Now we can check off most of those checkboxes. The only one we're missing is that last one because I only did one question, but you still have 2 more questions to go. So good luck.